All right, here goes. It's been a while since I've actually used a computer to talk. Um, I don't know if I sound really tired or seem like it, but I am really tired. working, yeah, working a lot of late night shifts for this mission control training. Things are going pretty well so far. But lately, I've been thinking about how small actions could lead to major consequences. Um, One of my favorite games is Life is Strange. For those who haven't played it, I mean, I highly recommend it. Anyways, I feel like I'm speaking to an audience here. Maybe I am, but it's also partly musings. Um, so when I look at where I am now, working at a lunar lander company, um, I was thinking like it's not like I instantly plopped into this role. Um, a lot of things stem from like the tiniest actions that like the seeds were planted years ago, so to speak. So, give you a short story. I believe it was like 2018 or something. I was in the midst of trying to find a job, contacted a bunch of people, and one of them I had a business card, and I thought I met the guy at a aerospace conference. So I emailed him and said, "Hey, let's talk. Here's my resume." And he's like, "Well, my company's not really ready yet. I'm trying to like figure out things, but let's have a coffee chat." And so I met him for coffee, and it turns out that I've actually never met him. I just happened to pick up his business card at I guess, at a AIAA. AIAA is a aerospace American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics conference. So I just picked up this guy's random card and thought I knew him. And anyways, ended up having coffee, kept in touch. I would get lunch with him every so often. Then fast forward to like about a year or so later in 2019, I was working in the Boeing building, working on the space station program, and then I bumped into him. And it turns out that he's doing work for he has his own company, but he's doing work for Intuitive Machines. And then he's like, "Are you, it's good to see you, Shen. Like, do you want to, are you interested? Do you like where you are right now?" And I explained what I was doing. He was like, "Oh, wow, yeah, we can find a place for you here." And then about like a year later, I jumped into um, working for Iron Ring. That's a company. I'm still with them. And also basically working on Intuitive Machines projects. And all this came about all because of that random business card I got from a conference that I went to. I did not have to pick up that business card. I mean, I didn't have to email the guy. I didn't have to email any of them. Um, but like, it's like that tiniest little thing led to, you could say, led to where I am now, and also choosing that particular job that ended up in the Boeing building, which is where Intuitive Machines happened to be at that time as well, and coincidentally bumping into him. So how does that happen, right? I mean, it's like, wow, I can see the threads tied together, like in hindsight. But like if I just imagine if this was a game during that time when I picked up the business card, it might have said like, in the bottom right of the screen, this action will have consequences. Which, by the way, I actually made this action will have consequences, a little butterfly and little circle thing. For anybody who's played the game, you would know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so anyways, this is like my little art box. But yeah, like that's just strange. And then recently I caught up with a friend of mine. I'll just say his name, Iman. And he was telling me his wife actually stated that she was eternally thankful for me for encouraging him to go back and do school and do aerospace, since for a while he was working for an oil company and he wasn't very happy. He wanted to do aerospace, but he was also like, if I go back to school, I'm going to sacrifice making six figures, be back to a student. Is that really worth it? And I told him, yeah, you should. And I think I got him connected with some people from International Space University, and he got admitted to that, went to that, and then things progressed from there. He filled out his college applications, ended up in University of Washington out in Seattle. And then a few years later, met his now wife, and they're happily married. They just got married last year. And they're out there. And she told me she would never have gone to Houston, um, and so she would never have met him. And he, and then what little did I do, right? Well, I think how I met him is I went to the Space Up conference. I think this was like 2009 or something. I can't remember. Maybe 2011, actually. Sorry. And then I don't know. I just went up to the front and I was trying to talk to some of the entrepreneurs there, and he was there as well. Iman was, and I chatted with him about his interest in space, and it was like, oh, here's another guy who's wanting to get in the space industry but is not in there. Um, and we connected, and then we became really good friends. Went to a lot of like poetry events and other things like that. We hung out with another mutual friend of ours for a while. Um, yeah, that year was really fun. But yeah, but all of that, like, I was just thinking, like, it was only because I went to that particular conference and I decided to, stick around and just try to talk to some people. So if I had just like didn't bump into this guy, if I just said like, I just imagine on the bottom right of the screen, if this was a video game, if my life was these choices, I could have said like there would be like two boxes, right? One is like go home, and I don't know, just go home. Or the second thing is go up to the front and talk to some of the people. And then let's just say I go there, and then there'll be another choice that's like go talk to this guy next to you. Um, or the other choice would have been don't talk to him. Just continue engaging with these other people. So, I mean, I don't know. Like this has definitely had a profound impact on his life. Like he may not have gone into space the way as quickly as he has, and who knows, he may have gone. You never know, right? So, but the point is like, I think me hanging around me and like me inspiring him really did help him like make those decisions. So, yeah, and I was thinking another friend of mine who, two friends actually, they are happily married and have a kid now. And I met both of them randomly. One of them I met at a coffee shop. Name is Yusuf. One of my close friends, though I don't talk to him that much anymore, unfortunately. I have to give him a call sometime. Another is Julie. And Julie I met since I was doing Airbnb at my apartment. Why was I doing that? Because I was like had very little money and decided, hey, why not do Airbnb and rent things out? And that's how I met her. And then Yusuf I met since my student was late for tutoring. So I was tutoring students at that time to make money as well. And so I just saw this guy shuffling papers and like watching a bunch of different videos on like 3 different screens. So I got curious and started talking to him. And we swapped numbers and decided to hang out. And eventually, like Julie moved down to Houston for a while. But the point is, all these different people, like I could have just said like, well, I'm not going to do Airbnb. Like, why would I let strangers stay in my apartment? I mean, that's not worth the risk. And that's a lot of hassle and everything. If I chose to do that, I would never have met Julie. Another thing at the coffee shop, I could have 2 choices: talk to this guy or look at him curiously and just go in and wait for your student. I talked to him. So those actions led to these 2 people meeting eventually, and then they had chemistry and all that, and like I said, now they're like up in the Northeast and like have a kid together. So it's like, I don't know, indirectly I'm responsible for like creating life, I suppose. So definitely some matchmaking here, however inadvertently. But yeah, like that's just something else I was thinking of. Like, wow, at the time I don't think I was thinking, well, if I talk to this guy right now, this will have major consequences in his life later on. He will end up marrying this person, being with this person, having a kid with this person. I can't see the future. I don't think like that. I'm just like, okay, this guy seems kind of interesting. I'll just talk to him. And same thing with Airbnb is a little different. I think I knew that I was going to meet some interesting people, but I didn't know if any of them I would keep in touch with. So there are certain decisions which are, quite obvious, like, hey, this one will probably lead to a lot of changes or new interactions, possibly new avenues in life opening up. Other ones, it just seems like completely innocent and then leads somewhere hugely impactful, maybe for me, maybe for this other person or persons. I look at like last year as well with all I did I guess not last year, maybe 2 years ago now. Yeah, in 2023, I did like body and brain, like Tai Chi group. Um, and that was not inevitable. I picked up the flyer at a poke bowl on Westheimer in Montrose area here, and I was in a lot of physical and emotional pain at that point. And I was thinking, maybe I give this a shot. They seem kind of expensive, but the opening little class is only $30, so why don't I give them a call? So two things, right? I could have, while I was getting food, two pop-up boxes. If this was a game, it could have been just get the food, or two, pick up the flyer and look at it. And then later that night, I also had two choices. One could have been put the flyer away, or two, call the number on the flyer. I called the number on the flyer at like 9:30 p.m. and Master Yana, that was her name. Yeah, that was a master at that point. She picked up, and I was like, and I arranged to meet up with her like 2 weeks later for training, and then explained everything that was going on inside my life, which was a lot, by the way. And then she, for better or worse, I would say for better, encouraged me to do body and brain. And body and brain, I think, was extremely helpful, even though I put a lot of money into it. It was very helpful for me to handle my emotional and physical stress. But even more importantly, I met a lot of lifelong friends that I'm still in touch with. Like one of my closest, I'll call him my little brother. I met him through that, and then also someone, yeah, like I would say I also met someone who I got into a relationship with for a while, that ended recently. But the point is, that these kinds of interactions and relationships would never have happened if I never picked up that flyer or never called that number and agreed to go see it. And then, oh yeah, there was also a third major decision factor, which was after that initial training session, tutorial session, it was yes or no, like sign up for full class or decide this is too much money. I decided, well, I'm going to sign up for the full class. So yeah, and I think like, wow, like ultimately these huge things that happen in life, who I end up spending my time with, making all these memories, these deep bonds that are created, these new skills, new, I don't know, new experiences, these different experiences, that occurs in my life as well as other people's lives. They all come ultimately from these really seemingly possibly small decision points, but they all add up. And sometimes, like, you never know how what you think or what I think is insignificant of action could have a huge impact later on in my life or other people's lives or the world. Sometimes it's easier to see, like, for instance, my work, working in the space industry, working on lunar missions. I can directly see like the code I'm writing, working on operations. Those things obviously have a direct impact on how successful the mission is. And it's like, if I do good work, take care of myself, everybody's so inspired and motivated. Like, I'm really glad to be in such a, I don't know, such a great environment like that. But point is, like, doing things there is it's pretty obvious. It's like, do work, this is going to help lead to a successful mission. Other things in life, not nearly as clear, right? Like I said, talking to a random person coffee shop, who knew how his life changed because of meeting me, and my life changing away too, because I made a very close friend. So there's probably dozens, if not hundreds, of other examples in my life where I would say, like, the closest people, some of them, many of them, are just completely random. Like my other friend Michelle, I met her through a job hunting group, and how many different ways are there to see 30, I think it was about 30 people together. If she didn't sit next to me in class, when we went to JS 101, the job training, job hunting training, then I probably wouldn't have talked to her. I wouldn't have just like gone random, set to a random person. But instead, we were seated next to each other, and then we practiced interviews on each other, and she offered me some food, and we decided to hang out. And this is fast forward like 7 years later, we're still really close friends. So I mean, sometimes it's just a matter of like where life decides to put you, literally, like where you're sitting in a room. But then it's still up to me to decide whether to like engage with a person, right? So there's always a chance factor, and then there's always a chance or coincidence, or if If you believe it, God ordained, here you go. This is a scenario. But then I think, given free will, it's up to me to decide whether to engage or not engage, you know, whether to do this or not do this. So I know I'm just talking about meeting random people and things like that, but I don't know. I mean, it's obviously more than that as well. Like I think, like I can always look at the alternative. Like I don't know what the alternative would have been. I think, like for instance, if I did not go to Body and Brain, maybe I would join a yoga studio, but then I would never have met the same people since they would not have joined whatever yoga studio. Um, so my trajectory last year would have been very different. Since I spent a lot of time with Justin, my little brother, and also Megan. So yeah, like everything would have been very, very different, I think. So what's coming up in my adventures? I'm actually, well, aside from taking us to the moon, of course, um, the other thing, like I said, my bucket list, right? So one of the major things that I'm going to contact are some flight schools, because I want to get back into learning how to fly. It's been quite a while. I have to start from scratch again, but I think with that would be a whole different experience. And then the other one is I really want to start a weekend writers group. I mean, I think that would be very, very I love writing, but I love it more. I guess I'm a social creature a lot of times. I like it when I'm doing things with other people. So I would like to start one where, you know, a couple of writers just gather at a coffee shop or a tea shop, and just write for a few hours, like on a Sunday afternoon or something. And then each of us can work on our projects. We can also share what we've written, talk about it. This will probably help a lot, encouraging me to also write my next book called Apoapsis, which has been on delay for a while. I'm probably going to start over with that since my theme in my head has changed. But yeah, start a weekend writers group. Who knows what's going to happen there? Like, that's going to be really exciting, not just creatively. I'm sure, like, creatively, I would produce things as well. That'd be really interesting. But also, like, the people I meet, then learning to fly, you know, garnering that new skill. I mean, one consequence of that might be a die in a fiery plane crash, but hopefully not. But the other consequence of that might be like it helps me in my, you know, future astronaut application, or end up having opportunity doing something that I would not have been able to do since I, you know, like it would require having a pilot's license or knowing how to do, you know. So anyway, two major ones, and also learning Russian. That's another one. I'm not sure what doors that would open immediately, at least, but it's something. Um, yeah, so I think the future is pretty exciting, and frankly, like when I just look at all the threads of coincidences and impactful decisions I've made, which led to today, it's really remarkable in my life. I think. And maybe it's not just my life, it's like everyone's lives, right? Like if you look at it, maybe everyone can look at things that happened in their life which led to them to where they are. And the thing is, like, I think some people can tend to get in a funk or get depressed, maybe because, you know, these threads are not so clear to them. And then the future, if the future just seems as bland as the present, let's just say, then, you know, it's not very encouraging, right? If your present day life, you don't quite like it, and then you just think the future is going to be the same like that or worse. But when I look at it, you know, we're making decisions all the time, and we can always make decisions which expand our life, enrich our lives. But that takes like concrete action at times, right? Like sometimes it's, when I look at it, like all these actual, I don't know if I should use the word quoting good. I should say enriching experiences I experienced. Enriching experiences basically enhances like what, you know, the connections in life, new skills, new experiences, all of that required me to be proactive. Like I was thinking, if I didn't talk to these people, if I didn't go to these conferences, if I didn't do this, didn't do that, yeah, I could have just sat at home and complained about how miserable my life is and blah blah blah, or just have fond memories of the past and just think my present sucks. But really, that's not how life is. Like, you know, I always, very rarely in my life have I been thoroughly depressed to the point where I don't, I just give up on myself. I've never done that. So like, I'm always there, like trying new things, and um, this year 2025, like this is a big year. I think, like I said, I think this is gonna, my life is gonna change again. Every year it changes. So I'm not saying I'm gonna remove the same people from my life. I'm just saying like new experiences, possibly new people, uh, new skills, new growth, right? So anyway, so that's all there is. Yeah, I think I also made this video partly because I have to keep that in mind as well, because otherwise, I could just mope about and think about what I don't have or all these other things. But when I look at the bigger picture, it's like all these threads tied together leads to something good. And it's because, you know, I don't know if I should say I'm making the right decisions, but I am making decisions that are having impacts. So, all right, I've spoken enough. I gotta eat something, get some more rest, and then have another shift of mission control coming up. So, ciao.